Hey, Ryan Dice here, and I'm excited to be walking you through the mini class launch campaign. This is probably one of the most involved turnkey campaigns that you're going to get with the machine. So this video is going to be a little bit longer than normal, but that's because it's actually a great example of campaign stacking. We've talked a lot about campaign stacking in the last couple of modules, and so I'm showing you this one so that you can see a good example of campaign stacking. You're also going to see in this one a little bit of preview of an engagement, of a segmentation series. So what you're getting with the mini class launch is it's a combination of a segmentation series that rolls into a mini class or a content series that also stacks with it an early bird series and a sales series and a closing series. So it is campaigns stacked to top one another. So this is a good example of a campaign that you can use as is right out of the box, and you'll see it's a long one. It's got a lot of emails in it. Or you can break it apart and only use certain sections if you want to. And I'll kind of get into that as we go through and talk through this different part. Now, as I say in the description up here, this campaign consists of four main parts. The broadcast series, which I'm giving you here, even though it's actually technically a segmentation series. So you're going to see this series again when we get into the next module and talk about segmentation series. I started to leave it out because it's not technically an engagement series, right? The broadcast series that makes up the mini class launch is a segmentation series because its job is to get people who are in that segmentation bucket to click over to take action and to opt into an engagement series, to get them to raise their hand, right? But if I don't give you the broadcast series and show how they ultimately get into that engagement series, I knew that it wouldn't make as much sense. So it's a good little preview for you. I got a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario, so I went ahead and just gave them both to you. But then we do get into some other really great series. Now, this particular type of series works best for selling higher ticket items, okay? Now, it works really well if you sell information products or any type of consulting and it's a little more expensive or higher end. If you need to educate your buyers, it works really great. We actually have a client that sells surfboards, right? And we kind of helped him craft a mini class launch that was on different surfing techniques, so he could then sell them the boards that they needed. So they opted into a three-part mini class on how to do different surfing maneuvers, and then he said, hey, if you have this special type of board, it's actually easier to do these maneuvers. So don't think that this series only works if you're selling an information product. It works whether you're selling physical products, consulting, whatever it is, it'll work because what you're doing is you're educating your buyer on a particular subject. And in the process of educating, you're showing that you're an authority, you're showing that you know your stuff. And just like, all good lead magnets, when they are delivered, they move people down that continuum of belief. They make them feel more comfortable to take that next step. And in the case of somebody making a pretty significant investment, right? If you're selling a $500,000, $2,000 course or training series, or if you're selling a expensive surfboard or something like that, people want to know what they're getting into. They want to know that they're going to get value from it. So when you educate them ahead of time and you allow them to kind of future cast, to think out, how great is it going to be when I'm able to experience all these benefits? It makes it very real for them. So that's the benefit of the mini class launch, and that's the whole idea, is they're opting in to get a mini class, to get a small video series. Now, a lot of people ask, do I have to do this via video? Could I have them opt in to get a different type of content series? Yeah, you certainly could. You could have them, opt in to get different blog posts and things like that. But it really works best with video, so that's how we're going to describe the mini class launch here. All right, so I'm going to dive in again, talking about the broadcast series first. Even though this is technically a segmentation series, all right? This is not an engagement series. So this broadcast series that you see here is going to be sent out to your list. And it's a 3-email series, and the purpose of this 3-email series is to get them to opt in to the engagement series about the thing. And you're going to see as we go through, it follows, it follows the same basic pattern that I described in the initial free training video that led you to this. So it's a direct message, a blind message, and then one that's kind of can be more bundled in with content. So that BDC campaign that I described, like I said, in the free training series, frankly, in the mini class that got you into the machine, we're following the same pattern here. So email number 1, you can see here, this one is fairly direct. Now the subject line, kind of weird, but very, so you can say kind of weird, but very profitable, kind of weird, but very interesting, kind of weird, but very, intense. And you could do a lot of different subject lines. So that's a sort of compelling, interesting subject line that's worked before. We just say you're really going to like this. And then it's a straight link, an image of the video and then a link over to the page. Now you'll see here it says image of video that links to reverse squeeze page, and then a URL that goes over to the reverse squeeze page. So before we go any further, I want to say what I mean by a reverse squeeze page. So this right here, my buddy Brendan Burchard, this is his squeeze page that opts people into a video series. This is a traditional squeeze page. So they are opting in here. There's no content on this page. There's just the opportunity to opt in with their first name and email address to get the 3-part video series. That's what they're opting in for. This is a traditional squeeze page. This right here is an example of a reverse squeeze. So here, there's a video of Brendan, it auto plays, it gives some content, and then he says, look, you can opt in here to get the 3-part video series. I actually did something very similar to this. With the machine launch. Again, this was the training that likely got you listening to me right now. I did this initial video that was how often should you mail your list. I gave content here. This is about a 20-minute video, and I said if you like this video, click below to access part 2 and 3 of this series. So what a reverse squeeze page is you're reversing the order in which the content is delivered. So with the reverse squeeze page, you're delivering content first, you're delivering value first, and then you're saying, okay, if you like this and you want more, register to get parts 2 and 3. Now, the upside to a reverse squeeze page is it allows you to mail your list a promotion, but give them content, right? So nobody got upset when we were mailing this out to our list and saying, hey, I've got this video, because there's content in this video. I mean, you remember, if I go for and play, here's me actually teaching and describing really remember this blind direct content, this BDC campaign, right? Describing essentially a segmentation series. So I went through and I taught for an extended period of time. This is a 24-minute video. So at no point are people saying, oh, you're just trying to pitch me. But then they get the option here to go ahead, if they like the video, to opt in to get parts 2 and 3. So this is a reverse squeeze page. This right here is an example of a traditional squeeze page. So what I'm recommending that you do with this particular campaign, with the mini class launch, when you go out to your house list, right? So when you email this segmentation series to your list, I'm going to recommend that you do the reverse squeeze page model just to mix it up a little bit. Because if all you do is you send your list over and over and over again to opt-in form after opt-in form after opt-in form, it's going to get very boring and it's going to get very redundant. And they're eventually going to start to say, the only way I ever get content from this person is if they have me, opt in for something, and I've already opted in a bunch of times. So while I think it's great to email your list and ask them to opt in, every now and then it's good to mix it up and to give them a little bit of content on the front end. Now, if you want to change this up so that instead of doing a reverse squeeze page, because the downside, just so you know, to doing a reverse squeeze page is your conversion rate is going to be significantly lower. So where we might typically get a 50 to a 60% opt-in rate on a traditional squeeze page, if we mail our own list, so if I send an email to you, right, and to everyone else who's on our list, we're typically going to see opt-in rates north of 50 and 60%. But if I send them to, I'll go back here, if I send them to this page right here, the opt-in rate is more like 30 to 40%. So it's quite a bit less. Now, the benefit to it is, number one, I've given value. So even the people that didn't opt in, they still have good feelings about me and the fact that they're on my list. It's also a benefit in that the people who do opt in, they're far more engaged. They're far more invested. So at the end of the day, it winds up working out about the same from a sales perspective. So I'm just going to suggest to you that you mix it up. Right, and this is a great opportunity to mix it up. You can't really mix it up if they're opting in for a case study or a special report, right? In that case, you got to hold it back because you just have the one lead magnet. But in this case, we're going to send them out 3 videos. If we give them the first and have them opt in for 2 and 3, that's okay. We still have, lots of good stuff going for us. So, I know we're still talking about a lot of things. We haven't even got to the actual campaign, but I want you to understand the context and what I mean by the reverse squeeze. Now, if you decide that you don't want to use a reverse squeeze, that's fine. You don't have to with this series. It's just instead of telling them through here, I say it's the first of a 3-part video series. If I say, you're really going to like this, and they opt over, say, it's when you go to that page, you can register for a 3-part video series I created for you that blank, whatever that video series is about. So instead of, and then you say, here's a hint, and then you give a little bit of preview of what it's about. You get the idea here. Right here you say the first video is only, if you're doing a traditional squeeze as opposed to reverse, you might leave this part out. You certainly aren't going to go tell them to watch a video if they're not going to be able to watch it, and you're also not going to say no opt-in required if you're requiring them to opt in. So with some simple tweaks and modifications, you don't have to do this as a reverse squeeze page offer. I'm just going to recommend that you do it as a reverse squeeze page offer. Yes, your opt-in rates are going to be lower, but your list is going to love you. And at the end of the day, it winds up being a wash because the people who do get into your engagement series are so much more qualified. Okay, I'm going to go on. Now, I'm sort of going to rush through the broadcast series because we're going to talk about it again when we get into the segmentation module, but you get the idea, right? Email number 2 is the same type of thing. I say here this one's a little more blind and mysterious, right? Have you gone and watched? Have you really not gone and watched this first video that I made for you? And it's very short. Just go watch it. Go watch it. Go watch it. And then in video number 3, we actually are closing out the video series. We're closing out. We're saying, hey, I'm going to stop talking to you about this because remember, when we're talking about sending out a segmentation series, we're usually only going to email our list about 3 times about the same thing. And I have a little fun here. I say, sorry for the all caps in the subject line, right? Because all these do have subject line options do have all caps in at least one of the words. I say, but my super fancy pants analytics and tracking program, or SMAFP, AAP for short, so just kind of having fun, is showing that you still haven't registered for this free training series I'm holding. Because remember, the way that we're going to structure our machine is when somebody registers for an engagement series, we're no longer going to send them a broadcast. So if they receive this email, it's because they haven't yet opted in for the 3-part video series. So that's kind of it, having a little bit of fun. And, I tell them here, you don't need to opt in or anything like that. There's nothing for sale. And then in the PS, sorry for making such a big deal about this video, but it's actually the first of a 3-part series. And I say down here, if you don't, I'll assume you don't care about this topic and move on, right? So tell them this is your last chance. Click now or forever hold your peace, right? So that is the broadcast series. And again, that's just the segmentation part. We haven't even got to the engagement series yet. That's what we're going to get to next. I'm just telling you all that, briefly covering the broadcast series, which is the segmentation part, and the whole reverse squeeze concept, just so that you can understand, how this mini class launch campaign works. So now they have opted in. You showed them video 1, they said, yep, great, I want to get video 2 and 3, or you just had them opt in directly for the 3-part series. Either way, this, starting with the content series, this begins the engagement series. So as soon as they opt in, where they opt in from video 1, 2, or 3, then they're going to receive this email number 1 immediately. Okay, they're going to receive this email number 1 immediately. So you're telling them good news. Over the next few days, I'll be sending you the video series I made for you. Tell them the name of the series. And you're just going through and you're, in this case, because they will have already seen video number 1, if you're doing a reverse squeeze, then you're going to go ahead, you're telling them that you're going to send them video number 2 tomorrow. So we're doing a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of scarcity. So even though they're opting in and they're hoping to get video number 2 immediately, we're holding that back. We want to build that anticipation, right? So this particular email will work whether you opted people in for a reverse squeeze or a traditional squeeze, because they're not going to get the second video until the next day. And that's good because it gives them time to go back and watch video number 1. And we actually hint at it here that they should watch video 1 until the end, and we hint that there's a little bit of a benefit if they do that. And I'll tell you what that benefit is and how we leverage a waiting list in just a second when we get to that part. All right, email number 2. So this goes out the day after they opt in for the engagement series. You can see it just talks to them about go get video number 2. Not a whole lot to it. You're kind of describing the content. It's basically just saying go watch it, go watch it, go watch it. And it's telling them, make sure you watch it now so you don't fall behind in this training, right? You're reminding them they're going to get another video tomorrow. Pretty simple there too. Email number 3, again, it's going to go out 2 days after they opted in for this engagement series, and you're just giving them access to video number 3. Like I said, there's not a whole heck of a lot to it. You're just giving them access to the thing that they already bought, and you're encouraging consumption. So you could see here that we're hinting at things and we're encouraging consumption. But something else really neat happens here in this third email. Remember when we talked back in the indoctrination series about opening loops and closing loops? Here's what I'm going to recommend that you do in your second video. Okay, so going back to video number 2, in video number 2, you're going to promise a bunch of content, right? So you might say, I'm going to show you 3 things. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Now here's what I want you to do in video number 2. I want you to not cover all 3. All right, I want you to cover number 1 and number 2, and then I want you to say at the end, you know what? I know I wanted to cover all 3 of these things, but this video is already running a little bit long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the third thing at the start of video number 3. So what did you just do there? You opened a loop in your video. So you're saying to him at the end of video 2, I don't quite have time to, this video is already running long, I wanted to keep these things to just 10 or 20 minutes, and so I'm going to cover the rest of what I wanted to cover at the start of video number 3. So what you're doing is your most engaged people now are getting really excited. They're getting really interested. And just like we talk about opening loops in emails, you're opening a loop in a video. Now, the great thing is if you do that in video number 2, you can come back in video number 3 and you could say this. If you watch the second video in this series, here it is. If you watch the second video in the series, I wasn't able to cover everything I wanted to cover. So in this video, I'll finish talking about and then describe the open loop that you opened in number 2 and that you plan on closing in this one. So what's beautiful about this, remember we talked about bouncing, right? And how open loops cause people to bounce around? There's going to be people who see that and they say, oh, cool. Well, what did I miss in video number 2? Because, yeah, obviously I didn't see that he didn't have a chance to cover everything. So a lot of folks will go back and they'll watch video number 2, which is great because we want them to do that if they didn't watch it all the way to the end. And then the folks who did watch it and they now see that, okay, yes, you are in fact going to cover everything that you promised you'd cover, they get a sense of relief and they're now excited to go back and watch video number 3. You got to do little things like this to keep people engaged. All right, over a 3-part video series, you're going to lose some folks, and that's okay, because the folks that you lose are the ones that aren't as excited. They're the ones who probably aren't going to buy anyway, right? So, but these are some things that you can do to keep the people who are interested even more interested. All right, so you get a sense of how this works. I like to say this is probably my favorite video in the series because not only do I show you, and then you can give them hint at a cool little tip, I'll also show you, and then you can hint at an even cooler tip. Right? So you don't want to tell them exactly what it is, but you want to hint at it. Hint at it. These emails, the purpose of these 3 emails in the content series is all about consumption. It's all about getting them to go and watch and consume the videos that you gave them, right? That's what we want here. We want consumption, okay? Now, one of the things that you've seen here referenced a couple of times, hinted at before, and down here it's mentioned more overtly, is you're going to tell them in this one that the product that you're launching will officially open tomorrow, and there's X number of people on the waiting list, and that they need to watch the entire video. Now, going back to it, I'll show you how these video pages are structured. Again, I'm going to use my buddy Brennan Burchard as an example of how these things are done. So let's say this is video, 2 of 3, because Brennan utilizes this strategy a lot, right? So let's say this is video number 2, 3. This is an optional thing that you can do, an optional bolt-on called the early bird list. So if you want to have an early bird list at the end of video 1 and at the end of video 2 and at the end of video 3, you hint at the fact that you're going to be making them an offer, that you're going to be selling them something. So what you might say at the end of the video is you might say, I hope you're enjoying this free training series, but in a few days, and you want to keep it generic because you don't know when they're watching it, but you say in a few days, I'm going to be opening up the advanced version of this training. It's called this. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. And if you love this free training, I know you're going to love the advanced training as well. Seats are going to be limited, so if you want in, then you might want to opt in below to the early bird list. And you could simply drop in an opt-in form below the video that people can opt in to get onto an early bird list. Now, if they opt into the early bird list, it doesn't take them off of that core engagement series. It just puts them on an additional list and they receive an additional email. All right, and you'll see what that additional email is in just a little bit. Now, if you're doing this for the first time and you don't have the product created yet, you're going to be doing it as a class and you don't necessarily want people signing up early, you don't have to do this. Or if you just don't want to have an early bird list, you don't have to do it. It is purely optional. Now, a couple of the benefits of having an early bird list is, number one, you get to gauge interest early on. So if in video number 1, you say I'm going to be doing an advanced class on this, or if you say, again, in the example of my buddy who's in the surfing business, I hope you like this video. I've got a couple more great videos coming for you over the next couple of days, but we also have a killer deal on a brand new surfboard that we're about to release. We're going to have limited quantities in this first shipment, so if you want to get on the early bird notification list, a form just appeared, sign up below. If you get a whole bunch of people signing up for that, great, I've got something here. People are really excited. If no one really signs up, right? Like let's say you get 1,000 people who sign up for video number 1 and you make that early bird offer and you get like a couple of people that sign up, then maybe you should be a little bit concerned that people aren't as excited about this thing that you're planning to offer them as you would have thought they would be, right? It doesn't mean you totally pull the plug on it, but it might mean that you go back and you start testing some different messaging and maybe a different hook or something like that. And you also, at the end of it, you shouldn't give a complete pitch for your product. You just hint at what's coming. I have a more advanced version. We're going to talk about a lot more detailed. You're not going into an extended pitch, but you should tell them enough that if they are interested in what you're talking about, they should at least be interested enough to say, okay, great, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll check it out. I want to get on this early bird list and see what's going on. So it's a good initial gauge of interest. The other nice thing about the early bird is if you do it like I suggest that you do it down here, which is actually a lot of fun. So here's the early bird notification. It says, welcome early bird, I changed my mind. It's done like this. Okay, so I changed my mind. Rather than make you wait, here's immediate access to the live registration page for product name that opens in a few days. And you just link over to your video sales letter to your sales page. And you tell them, originally my plan was, and this happened totally organically. We were originally planning on just giving early birds a 30-minute head start. And I said, you know what, forget it. Let's just let them buy now. And these 2 reasons down here were the exact reasons why I wanted to go ahead and let everybody buy now. So the other benefit to doing an early bird campaign is you can start getting sales as early as day 1. All right, so let's go back and paint the picture. You send out an email on a Monday. Let's go back up to the top. So right now I'm on page 6. Let's go all the way back to page number 1. So let's say you send out this very first email number 1 in your segmentation series. So you send out this email, somebody says, oh, that sounds great. They click on a link. They go and watch the first video and they opt in. Now that same day, they're going to receive this first email in the content series, right? In the engagement series. This is going to get sent out and it's going to say, hey, here's access to video number 1. Go check it out, right? So they go over and they watch video number 1, which is on a different page because it's not, you don't want to send them back to the reverse squeeze page. You want to send them to a page that's on a standalone page and has that offer at the end to go ahead and sign up for the early bird list. And you're going to go ahead and tell them, if you're really interested in this, then I encourage you to watch this video until the very end. So you're going to encourage them to watch it, all the way very end. So let's say they do that. They go, they watch video number 1 until the very end, and they see the call to action where you say, look, if you're interested, go ahead and sign up for the early bird notification list below. They sign up for the early bird notification list, and then that same day, they receive this message right here telling them, okay, you can get in early. Now, your people who are really, really excited about it, they'll go ahead and buy immediately. Your people that aren't as excited, they'll wait. Maybe they'll watch video number 2 and video number 3, and then they'll finally make a decision. So the benefit of the early bird notification, apart from getting to show initial interest, is you can also make sales starting as early as day 1. Again, this is totally optional. If you don't want to do this, you certainly don't have to, but it's in there for those 2 reasons. But this is an example of campaign stacking, right? So this is kind of a separate little early bird notification campaign. If you want to use it, great. If you don't, that's fine. It's not going to hurt it at all. So that kind of takes care of the content series. Now, as soon as the content series is over, the sales series is going to begin. So there's 3 emails in the content series. So day 1, day 2, day 3. So day 4, 4 days after somebody has opted into the engagement series, the 4th email in the engagement series should be this one right here, which is the first email in the sales series. And it simply tells them, hey, the product is open. It's live. Go and get it. And it sends them over to the sales page where they can sign up for the particular product. Not a whole lot of explanation here required. It's just telling them, hey, go ahead and get it. I had a PS in here that we use because it has the added benefit of being true. You know, the last time I offered this class, it sold out in a matter of hours. And obviously, if you're not doing a class, if you're selling a product, then you just put that. Tell them, I don't know if that'll be the case this time. Obviously, if you haven't sold this before and it didn't sell out in a matter of hours, don't say this, right? When I give you things to model, please make sure that they are still true. Again, hopefully that goes without saying, but I want to make sure that is. All right, email number 2 in the sales series. So this will be the 5th email in the engagement series. Is again just telling them, go, go, go. This thing's open. It's a really short email, very, very, very short. Restates some benefits in the PS and encourages them to go and buy. And you can tell that this one is designed to be written like a very quick email. So instead of it being, you know, talk soon or sincerely and then your full name, it's just like it's a quick email that you wrote out very fast and then just a dash in your first name, right? So it's designed to look like it's something that you just quickly threw together and click send. Email number 3, it kind of goes in and you know, initially starts off the closing series. Again, now we're stacking a closing series on top of this one, and it tells them, it warns that it's about to close. Email number 4 tells them, hey, this is in fact closing today. And then email number 5 is it's closed. Now, this is another type of campaign that is stacked on top of this one. So I believe that this particular series right here has 4 or 5 different campaigns stacked on top of one another. Now, again, this one you don't have to use, but I found that it's very beneficial. After you do a big offer, a more expensive offer, a higher ticket offer, you're going to have a lot of people who wanted in, but they just weren't prepared to make the monetary commitment that you were asking. So if you're willing to pull some things out of the offer and offer it at a reduced price, you can have this silver lining or this second chance offer. And it's a good thing to go ahead and throw in at the end because it'll allow you to generate some additional revenue and make some people happy who are presently on the outside looking in. So the way that this works a lot of times, if we do a coaching offer, we didn't do this with the machine, but let's say I said, okay, you know, the machine is a coaching program. That's why it's priced the way that it is. But, you know, if you just want access to the campaigns and you don't want access to any of the coaching or the Facebook group or anything like that, any of the videos, just get the campaigns, you know, you can have it here for this discounted price. Again, we're not doing that with the machine. I have no plans to do that with the machine, but it's an example of how you could do that. You could simply pull some things away and say, look, as long as I don't have to do this for you, maybe you pull out a done for you component or a consulting component or a coaching component. If you pull that out and just give them something else, then you can drop the price and you have another reason to go back to them. And so that's how this is set up. So you go back to them and say bad news and some good news. You're telling them, I'm writing this email after taking down the registration page. This is good right here. Anytime you close an offer, it's good to send a message out to your list saying, hey, I said I was going to close this offer, and look, I did, right? I did close it. It's closed. And then you're telling them if you're the ones left out. So this kind of builds some additional social proof. There were a lot of people that were left out. A lot of people wanted in. I couldn't let them all in. But the good news is I've come up with a solution for you, right? And you're just telling them, here's a link to a second chance page. And the second chance page can just be your a duplicate of your main sales page. You can just tell them these bonuses or these items are no longer available, but they're getting it at this reduced price. So maybe you give it to them for 50% off or 20% off or 75% off. I mean, it depends on what you're taking out. So this second chance offer, and there's a couple of emails here, you actually wind up closing your second chance offer. So you have two closes built in here. The closing of the, actually there's three. You have the closing of the video series anymore, the closing of the video series itself when you're telling them in the segmentation series, okay, I'm done talking to you about this thing. That's kind of the takeaway close. Then you got a close of the main offer itself, and then you have a close of the second chance offer. But that's the type of thing that you get when you have this many messages, this many campaigns stacked on top of one another. I believe that this entire series is around, it's about a week and a half long, 2 weeks long, actually, and I think it's probably like 2 to 2.5 weeks long, depending on how far it goes through. So I know this was a fairly lengthy explanation. I'm sure that I'm going to have to do some additional videos to kind of talk about this, but mostly I just want you to see this is how campaign stacking works, right? This is how you're able to take a bunch of different series, whether it be just a content series, a sales series, an It's Open series, a closing series, an early bird series. Take all these things, stack them on top of one another, and turn it into a 2 to 3 week long series that just happens, that just goes, and that's when the machine really does its thing. That's when it really, really works. So I hope you got a lot out of this video. I know it was one of the longer ones. I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about it, and I'm going to need to come back and do some supplemental videos, but I just want you to see that. If you get just that one thing out of it, that this is how you campaign stack. Go in, read the emails, look at some of the things in there that you're changing. They're not very complex. There's not actually just a ton of nuances here. It's largely just describing things, but it's the sequence and the order that makes it all work. So I hope you implement it. I really do, because I know one thing, your people are going to love the content that they get from you. So even if they don't buy, the goodwill that's generated by you producing this 3-part video series is going to do a tremendous amount of good. So go out there. Let's see if you can bust out one of these mini classes. It is one of the most advanced campaigns and series out there, so don't feel like you have to start here. But if you can put it all together and do it, it's going to be an asset that your business is going to have for many years to come, and it's going to make you a whole lot of money. All right, with that, I'll close this one up, and I'll see you in the next one.